Hello and welcome. My name is Stefan Poschik from CHC Corporate Health Consulting. And today I have a very interesting guest speaker in my interview, and we are going to talk about diversity and inclusion. And before we start, let me tell you one thing. I'm really personally convinced that the employers of the future need a great culture. And a great culture, you just can achieve a great culture in your company when you implement employee engagement, when you take care of your employees, and when you really try to get a remarkable culture in your company and also a remarkable leadership team. And exactly, diversity and inclusion is something you will need to achieve these goals. So let's start with our interview. So welcome, Bettina Hillebrand.
Hello, nice to see you.
Bettina, please introduce yourself.
My name is Bettina Hillebrand. I work for MyAbility in Austria, which is a company that is actually consulting with a focus on disabilities, inclusion of people with disabilities. But we also have recruiting products which help companies to find employees with disabilities or chronic disease. Is there anything else you want to know about myself?
Not yet. That's perfect. So let's start with the first question. So what is your personal definition of diversity and inclusion?
So diversity, actually, in short, is for me the driver of innovation and the future for our companies. It's the blood that makes us innovate and be creative. And without diversity, we wouldn't be able to think new ways and to think differently. And inclusion is an approach where no one is left behind, and we tailor our circumstances, the framework we work in, to the needs of people so that they can excel and that they can fulfill their full potential.
That's interesting that you say diversity is the driver of innovation for the future. This is a really great definition. And I've never heard this before. I did already a couple of interviews about this topic. Why exactly innovation? Why is this your definition?
Well, I have a background, and I've worked for a long time with people on the autism spectrum, and my personal focus is neurodiversity. So people who have actually a different mindset and a different brain. But I think it applies to all different forms of diverse people. And I've seen that when you work together with people who actually think outside the box because they don't know where the box is, you get completely different approaches. And when people ask different kind of questions, when they do not take anything for granted because they just don't know better, and they are actually geeks, outsiders, weirdos, we would call them, then all of a sudden you get a completely different perspective. And I've actually seen teams being more innovative when they've included people from all different mindsets, backgrounds, and also neurodiverse people.
That's really awesome. Thank you. So how can a company start to implement diversity and inclusion? Where can they start? What are the first steps they should do?
Well, I'm actually a very pragmatic person. Sure, you can make a huge strategy and you can start at the top, and this will be the thing to do if you actually wanna carry on over years. But I think the first step is just to get down barriers you have in your mind. So just trigger moments of exposure. So if you have never met a person with disabilities before, if you have never been in contact with an autistic person, for example, if you haven't been in touch with people from very different cultures, then the first step is always to trigger contact, to make communication happen. And then what I find is that all those prejudices that were in your mind and stereotypes, they actually fall apart. So just do it and don't overthink it is actually what I can suggest.
Okay. So would you suggest that, that they learn or that they get in contact with somebody in a wheelchair, or that they get in contact with somebody from other countries, or what do you exactly mean, break down these barriers when they never met a person in this situation before?
Yeah, the thing is that you, when you, for example, are in HR or a D&I, that you can create formats where people can come together. You can start. I think it's good to have baby steps first. So either you have just a group meeting when you have a speaker who has a different background or who has another form of disability, for example, and you work on a project together. You create, I don't know, expert groups where you take someone from a different background or with a disability or from a different culture and integrate them in those small events. I see that very often big strategies tend to fail because then in the nitty-gritty detail, people just are afraid and they don't want to they don't want to exercise those strategies that have been built on the top. So I think some kind of grassroots movement to get a touch point and then go into further strategies. What we have, for example, with MyAbility is a so-called sensing journey. And this is just talk groups with experts in their own cause. So it's people with different kinds of disabilities. They are very open and they are trained also to speak about their needs. And then you get in just a very informal way, you get in touch with those people and you can ask you questions you wouldn't dare to ask in other settings. And I find that very, very helpful because I know how difficult it is to ask delicate questions in a business setting. So you have to, as a D&I executive, you have to create those little moments where you are allowed to ask and to break down barriers that you have in your mind.
Okay, that's really cool. Thank you. So can you already give us some best practice examples where companies implemented or started it in a pretty good way?
Yes. I hope you can still hear me because the connection was really bad for a moment. That's good. Very good.
Everything is fine.
Very good. So what I find as the best practices that I like most is where there has been some business opportunity in the diversity and inclusion approach. So I without giving names away of the companies, there are a few companies worldwide who concentrate on recruiting people with autism for software testing. There are different reasons for that. One of them is that people with autism are just the best software testers in the world because from their brain structure, they see differences better than people without autism, and they are very logically gifted. And so here you have a perfect overlap of a very, very good inclusion and diversity strategy, but having business sense on the other hand. So those people will give a really, they will give the edge for your company when you're in IT or software testing, and you won't find these people on the market. There's a huge lack of good software testers or IT personnel. So I think when you get started, it's very smart, like those examples did, to focus on a field where you just have a huge advantage commercially, and then you get the buy-in of your employees and of your board. I think that's a smart way to start.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. So when they recruit a lot of people or a couple of people with autism, do they need a special department, or do they need special educated people in the company? Because you will not be able to put 5 people with autism in a big office space where you have dozens of other people sitting around and being on a phone and talking to each other and stuff like that, right?
Exactly. I think it's the same for everyone. It's good to build the surroundings and the circumstances that help people to excel. That's what I said in the beginning. And when you focus, for example, on a specific group of people who have certain needs, then it makes sense, obviously, to train your managers to know how they can to work together in a good way. So you're right. In this case, especially hiring managers have been trained because the hiring process should be adapted. It shouldn't be the usual process that we know. Just to give you an example to get a grasp on it, the usual interview, the job interview, is just not a good way to get to know an autistic person. So you should give them small tasks. You give them little exercises to do. You give very clear. Even you give them those tasks beforehand so they can prepare. Nothing that would be of a surprise. That's not what you usually have in an interview, because there it's always about selling yourself. But you cannot get a good person who's an IT geek and ask this person to be a good salesperson as well. I don't think you find those people usually. So yes, you have to train your hiring managers. Yes, there might be minor changes to your company outlay, to your office buildings, but it's very pragmatic, because you have noise cancelling headsets. It's kind of easy. You just have to listen to what the needs of the person are. And what I always told hiring managers is that when you're in an interview, concentrate on what this person can contribute to your company, and do not try to find the faults and the problems and the little holes in the CV during the interview. Don't concentrate on that. Only concentrate on the potential, and then all of a sudden all these other things just come very easily.
I think this would be a very good approach, not only in the area of inclusion, but also in the area of disability, diversity. Also in the area of diversity, that we don't focus on these little holes and probably we find something and we don't take this person, but instead of let us focus on the potential and the huge opportunities we will gain when we employ this person, or when we include this person in our environment and in our organization. So Bettina, thank you so much. It was really a very interesting interview with you. So if somebody wants to reach out to you already in advance before we have our actual event, how can they get in contact with you and with your company? Where can they find you?
So obviously on the web. So if you're not by any chance in Vienna, then just go on the World Wide Web on myability.org, and there you find all contact details of me and my colleagues from the different services we offer.
That's perfect. So thank you so much. And yeah, for all your listeners out there, we see you at the HR Future Night at November 11th. And we're really looking forward to go so much more in detail in all these areas. So until then, a lot of success. Take care of yourself and have a great day. Talk soon.
Thank you very much, Stefan.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.